So much for needing 5 runs to win a game at Fenway Park. Apparently, all you need is an ace who fills up the zone and a team that is very swing happy. We'll talk about why Tanner Houck was not a good matchup for the Guardians. We'll talk about how I think I owe Ben Lively an apology, and the Guardians.
The man's got options.
He's got options. And the Guardians made some transactions on Wednesday. We will dig into all that. It is time for Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today's episode is brought to you by us talking over each other. I'm kidding. It's brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit, I have a competitive side. I'm a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. I am Jeff Ellis. Been one of the hosts. I mean, I guess for a while I was the only host on this podcast. Just past 5 years. Before that, I was a national drafts expert for Scout 24/7. Before that, I appeared at some level on your favorite Cleveland sports blogs.
I am Justin Ladd. I've appeared here since October of 2022. Some say when all things went downhill. I don't know.
Not our numbers, that's for sure.
I guess not our numbers. I don't know. We'll see how Thursday goes. But yeah, I've been covering the Guardians Indians farm system since 2007 for various sites, including Guardians/Indians Baseball Insider for a couple of years. I was a managing editor. I've also covered the farm system and the big league team on a freelance basis for the News Herald and the Morning Journal for the last half decade or so. Been a fun time. And thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today. And wherever you get podcasts, we are free everywhere. Check us out on all the podcast apps. Although Google deprecated theirs. Shame on Google. I enjoyed Google's podcast experience, and they told me I was not allowed to enjoy things anymore. But we're on free on YouTube. And if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber and you don't want to listen to ads, you can do that over there as well. We do have an ad-free version of the show.
I cut the ads every day for you.
Yeah. So go over and do that. So all you get to do is hear us talking over each other. But thank you for listening today. I know we have a lot of people who said they do listen, win or lose, but as we talked about before, our numbers seem to dip after that. So this will be a good test because the Guardians are off to a great start, but there was no getting off to anything on Wednesday night against the Red Sox because there was no offense. I'm tempted to say, I know this isn't going to be a popular decision sometimes, but like Tanner Houck was really good, and we're going to talk about the Guardians' offensive approach and why it was a bad matchup. But Tanner Houck was really good. I think that some nights you can say like tip your cap to the pitcher. He pitched really well. Sometimes a loss can just be a loss.
Yeah, and he's an interesting guy just from the way he's been jerked around in Boston, like starter, reliever. Yep. Former first-round pick. I saw him at Missouri back when he was a player there. That was Houck and Bryce Montes de Oca and Cam Meisner were probably the biggest names I got to see. Yeah, it was an interesting team. It was not the Missouri team they have now. Let's put it that way. But I like to do the 3 stars often if I do a now or if I'm doing things like that. Normally it's just Guardians, but it'd be hard to make a 3 stars list and not mention Houck. He was phenomenal. This team definitely is a little chase happy, so they do help him out. They're not a patient team. And that's with a guy like Houck, you need to be. I know we'll get into this a little bit more, but like he's a guy where you want to take advantage of the fact that he often operates a little bit more outside the zone. But this is the type of team that will bail that type of pitcher out.
Yeah, I would say actually it's kind of the reverse tonight because Tanner Houck this year he's in the 94th percentile in walk rate at 2.6. So he does not walk a lot of guys. He hasn't this year at the very least. And he is in the zone so far this year coming into this matchup 57.5% of the time. So he's throwing the strikes at almost a 58% rate. And the league average is 48.6. So when he's in the zone a whole lot, that could be good for the Guardians, but it's also a tough one for them because they're not going to make him work. They're going to swing at everything. And that's why this was a bad matchup. Coming into the game, Tanner Houck had the 9th lowest walk rate in baseball at 2.6. And I think he is now
1.02.
Yeah. So he went way, way down in this one. And the Guardians who lead the league in hit by pitches, they didn't even get one of those tonight. They have 7. They've been hit by a pitch 17 times this year, thanks to Andres Jimenez and I think Ramon Laureano. Yeah, a big culprit of that. So now Tanner Houck is away at 1.9 walk rate, which is second in baseball, just behind Sonny Gray, who I think only has 2 starts too. So yeah, this was just not a good matchup. The Guardians are last in baseball in walk rate. I'd love to see what they do. I have to go take a look, but what they do in terms of chase rate out of the zone. But it didn't matter where Tanner Houck threw the ball tonight. Actually, they're only they're at 33% in chase rate, which is that's bottom 5. Yeah, it's not great. It's not great.
Career has been typically over 3, so this is a little bit weird. It is a little bit different for him. But yeah, they, he was. Did he end up throwing a Maddox? I didn't pay enough attention at the end, but
that's a great question. I don't know if he
did. I feel like when a guy like this
it was a Maddox 94 pitches.
He was at 88 pitches in the 8th, and that means in the 19th, like too much first pitch. I know people sometimes like, oh, go out and swing on the first pitch, but it was a little too much. Like they had so many first pitch outs. They like the Boston's bullpen isn't good. Like this is another team that has
wanted to get into it, yeah.
The bullpen, but you weren't going to get in the bullpen because you kept, being almost too aggressive, swinging at a lot of first pitches. Did anyone even reach second base in this game? I mean, it's one game. They had the best record in baseball heading into this one. I haven't checked to see. I doubt they do because it's so early that shifts very quickly. So I'm not going to sit here and get too negative, but this was offensively, easily their worst showing of the year. And
3 singles.
They got beat up, and you have to make him work a little. And Tanner Houck didn't work at all. Like they let him just have a time of his life in this one. He didn't work one bit.
Yeah, I'm guessing they probably saw what he's been doing this year about, throwing more strikes, and you could assume they said, okay, well, if he's going to be in the zone, let's try to ambush him a little. And that's not a bad strategy.
It's not.
But you've also got to be prepared to hunt a certain pitch on the first pitch of the at bat. And what I think Houck did really well is he was very good at mixing up his arsenal. He threw a lot of sliders. He threw more sliders than any other pitch today. Didn't even throw a 4-seam fastball. He threw 3 cutters, 22 sinkers, and 32 splitters out of the 94 pitches. So he was slider, splitter, sinker. He mixed those 3 up very well. The Guardians did chase a lot out of the zone on the slider. It was a 75% chase rate, so the slider really ate them up. So you could say, maybe you want to ambush a guy who is filling up the zone with a lot of strikes this year, the way he's pitched. But at the same time, you've got to do that also maybe hunting a certain pitch. But it was probably just a bad matchup to begin with, considering what he's done this year and what the Guardians offense doesn't excel at, which is extending at bats. Bo Naylor sees a lot of pitches this year. Josh Naylor has seen a lot more pitches than he normally does in the past. So that's encouraging, but Jose and Quan, I think Quan almost worked a walk tonight. It was very close. He had a second walk of the year the other day.
I think third. He had 2 heading into that game. So he's up to 3.
So
now.
Bo and Josh are walking, and that's kind of it. Nobody else is drawing walks. You're getting hit by pitches from Jimenez and Laureano, which is helping. That is a skill. So we will say that, but
it's the one that most directly translates.
More than walk rate for whatever reason.
Yeah, hit by pitch. You can, if they're doing a lot in college, go all the way through.
Yeah, Houck wasn't even doing that. So I just don't know how you go about this. This is more of a long-term thing than a Wednesday night loss thing, because this was what plagued the Guardians last year, was the fact they didn't walk a lot. And it's easy to sit here and say, well, just take more pitches and be more patient. But as we've seen, Josh Naylor is being more patient this year for the first time in his career. Jose and Quan have been a little more aggressive this year. Bo has been a patient hitter. For whatever reason, Will Brennan has the Oscar Gonzalez sickness right now, or has. Tyler Freeman's always been swing happy. I just don't know how you go about affecting the change, because these guys have been playing this way for a long time.
Speaking of Tyler Freeman, I think we should talk about center field a little bit. It's just the way it is. And let's be honest, the reason, just to go back to before we talk about Gabby Iverson center, is because that's the guys they draft. Go back to last year. That's the Cooper Ingles. That's the CJ Kafis. they keep going for, or go back to Ernie Clement. It's like they go for guys who don't necessarily work a count. They go for these guys who are contact heavy, swing, put it in play, put it in play, put it in play, put it in play. That is the type of hitter they go for. So it's if they're already that way, and then you're an organization it's hard to change. Let's just put it that.
It is, especially when you are a guy that makes a lot of contact. So if you know you can make a lot of contact, even if it's bad contact, you're more likely to chase and put the bat on the ball in a situation you shouldn't, which is hard. It's a hard thing to change if that's been your profile, going back to your high school days, even in college. So it's easy for us to sit here and say that, but it is something Cleveland needs to address. I just don't know how they go about doing it, and that's why we're not paid to do it. That's why we're only slightly paid to talk about it. We are going to talk about Gabby Arias playing center field. We're going to talk about the Guardians transactions on Wednesday, and we'll get you ready for Thursday's matinee and the series finale against the Red Sox. Before we talk about all that, though, at some time in life, we are all faced with the decision of looking for life insurance. It's something that everybody eventually probably
not me.
Really
I'm never dying. Declaring that right now in the show.
Jeff's living forever.
Never
he
dying.
Is a cyborg.
I'm going to. You can just start playing Who Wants to Live Forever, and if you're watching the ad, post the movie below that is from.
Do you want to live forever? Well, in case you are not going to be like Jeff, Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options even offer same-day approval to avoid unnecessary medical exams, because we all know how those can be. And for some of us, our work may not offer us life insurance the way we need it. Maybe you have a high risk or high stress job, and they're not offering as much in life insurance as you're going to need for the long term. And it may not even go with you when you leave your job. I actually did have life insurance at my current job, and we switched carriers, and I lost the life insurance I had before. So that's, a reason I might be checking out Policygenius in the future. And they give you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team, because they have no incentive to recommend one insurer over another. So they're just looking for the best policy for you. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head over to policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That is policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB. Speaking of buying things, buy up all the park places, the hotels, all the good stuff on Monopoly Go. We all have that competitive side in us. I know I do. Whenever I play Monopoly, I got to say, I was always very competitive. I always wanted to beat everybody.
How many boards got flipped?
Yeah, that's the whole point, right? Is to make someone mad enough that you take all their money. Monopoly Go has been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you can play not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in some of the craziest locations you can think of and build up some amazing cities that bring you big money. But the best part is messing with your friends. You can do it at home. Now you can do it on your phone, and you can charge them rent on iconic properties just like classic Monopoly. But now you can also take all of their riches in the vaults yourself, and leaderboards can show you who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just our competitive side that loves that. You can team with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game, join your friends, download Monopoly Go now, free in the App Store or on Google Play. Guardians and Red Sox, if it hasn't already happened when you're listening to this, it's 1:35 first pitch on Thursday. You can listen to all the action at work on your Sirius XM app. Just search Guardians. All right. I know everybody saw it. Everybody was surprised. Gabriel Arias played center field. It is the first professional game he has ever played in center field, in the minors and the majors. I looked it up. Very surprising.
They pulled a Tito. They pulled a Tito. This is your Mike Freeman. This is your Michael Martinez.
Yeah.
Actually, they talked a lot on the broadcast about the coach has been doing a lot of work with both Freeman and Arias out there, and how Arias is playing in other ways.
Yeah, get him in the lineup while the bats working. He had another hit. I know it was an extra base hit, and the other at bats were kind of rough. He chased. He had 2 strikeouts. So that was just the story of the whole night. But interesting development there. We'll see if it continues. Freeman did have a home run the other night, but hey, the more versatility you have, the better. Just more ways to find bats on this roster to fit in the lineup when they're hitting. When they're not hitting, you make things move around. I thought the decision, though, I thought it was interesting because First of all, Fenway Park is a very difficult outfield to defend because in left
especially
field
in
you
center.
have everywhere really. Because in left field you have the monster. That's not easy. In center you have the triangle out there in center, and then right field there's just a lot of ground to cover. You have Pesky's pole. It's very weird. There's really no easy spot in Fenway Park in the outfield. But if I had to pick one, I would think it's center field. And I thought Arias did fine. He didn't have a lot of chances, but I thought he did just fine. And I'm all for seeing this work with him if it's going to help him get in the lineup more, and especially if the bat is working.
Yeah, the bat has been working. So I think you want to get him out there. And man, with his arm, like if he can be like an average to above average center fielder, he could be special because that arm is as good as there is on this team nearly. It might be the best on the team right now. I think it's up there in the competition. So you're getting just a lot of potential there with that. And for as much as everyone screams at me every time I do anything draft related, we'll talk Travis Bazzana's injury at the end of the show. Arias could be that right-handed bat people want. Like there's your right-handed power bat, and he can play center field and right field and first base and shortstop and second base and third base and
everybody
left field.
Ben Zobrist.
Ben Zobrist. I'm an old man, so I always talk Tony Phillips, but there's so much value in this, and if he totally buys into it, and he's able to produce, part of me thinks like this is the best thing for Arias. Like keep his head on a swivel, keep him engaged fully, have him moving around, and we know. Listen, he is a streaky hitter. Right now, you ride the streak. He's going to have a point where he is god awful. Like that is unfortunately the way of Arias so far. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, and we'll have less highs and lows and just more consistent play and more highs, less lows. But it was fun to see. It was unusual, but you going to talk about my man and all of his options next?
Ben Lively has all the options available to him after that start.
He never ceases to amaze us.
I'm going to cease to have doubts about him at this point. Ben Lively, that was a good performance. The balk call, I guess we should talk about the balk call. Everyone's going to want to hear about that. So,
yeah.
Friend
you
of the
got
show,
a better handle on this than I do.
Yeah, well, I didn't know about the rule coming in the night. This is again, we learned something today. That's what you should, you always see something new. You always learn something new when you watch a baseball game, supposedly. Good friend of the show, Scott Bybee. Some of you might know him as Tanner Bybee's dad, or former major league pitcher and former actor as well. But I was like, okay, where was the balk? I didn't see it. And we were talking, and he had mentioned that the rule this year is you have to, with a runner on base, you have to declare whether you're going to go from the stretch or the windup. Apparently, that's a rule that's been in the minors, and they had it this year. And even Stephen Vogt said they didn't get the explanation play after the game. So technically, it was a balk. It's just a new interpretation of what a balk is, which I feel like it's like, what's a catch in the NFL? What's a balk? Is the same thing in baseball. And it was just a very bad situation overall. But it didn't matter because he ended up giving a home run to Jeff's guy, Connor Wong, and that would have been the difference anyway because the Guardians.
He doesn't need to prove to me he's good. He can hit well against other teams. I've been a fan of his since his Houston days. He doesn't need to do this to the Guardians.
Yeah, it's that's why you last 2 off seasons you wanted to trade for Connor Wong, and they didn't listen. So there you go.
As a catcher,
instead they should have traded for Sal Frelick.
I couldn't help myself with that one today. When he was at Houston, not only was he a catcher, but I believe he led the nation in stolen bases. That's part of what made him such an interesting dude, even back then. But yeah, he's Connor Wong, newest Guardians killer.
I guess so. There's always somebody. Rafael Devers wasn't the killer tonight. He doesn't look healthy, so that could have played into it. But hey, Ben Lively put him away for one of his strikeouts. He did something that Tanner and Xavier Curry couldn't do. He had 7 strikeouts in 5 innings. This was, I think I texted you before the game. I texted a few people. I said, A, you got to score 6 or 7 runs tonight. And B, I was hoping for 5 innings, 4 runs for Lively, and that was going to be a good start for him. And he did better. He only gave up really one deserved run, I should say.
Yeah.
And I didn't see him striking out 7. I really didn't. He mixed and matched really well. Didn't get a lot of whiffs, but he was around the zone. He threw a lot of strikes. Hedges. I know people are not going to like this, and I am going to give 1 second guess decision to vote tonight. But I think playing Austin Hedges behind the plate to start made a ton of sense in Lively's first start because with him, you do need the framing. Not that Naylor's a bad framer, but I think you do need that catcher back there for Lively in his first start. And just with him in general, being a guy who relies on command and getting by with a deep arsenal. Like, he's not Aaron Savali, because Savali had the great curveball and he had some other pitches that were really good, the splitter. But Lively is kind of like it's like a Aaron Savali light. Like, he relies on command and kind of the whole kitchen sink approach. He threw a couple fastballs, a sweeper, a few curves, a few sliders, a few changes. Like, you just kind of throw everything at him. You command it well, and you keep him off balance, and it worked really well. So kind of a Savali light thing, but I thought Hedges catching him made a lot of sense. The only thing I didn't like, nothing about Lively I didn't like tonight except for the home run and the faux balk call. But was it the 8th inning when there was 2 outs, there was nobody on, and it was a 2-0 game. I have to go back and look what inning it was, but yeah, it was the 8th inning. I know there was 2 outs, but no pinch hitting for Hedges there. No Bo, no Fry. Like, at that point, you need runs. That's the only thing I'm going to second guess, is that probably should have.
I think if someone was on base, they would have. I just think it was a matter of like, oh, no one's on base, so we're not going to do it. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I'm just trying to explain why I think it didn't happen.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen that there, but that's, a small grade. Maybe it wouldn't have mattered the way Houck was throwing in this team's approach. So
it feels like it.
Yeah. All right, we got to talk about Pedro Avila. Who is he? Guardians transactions. We want to throw in some draft talk at the end here. So all that coming up here on Locked On Guardians.
And we got to talk about one of our favorite sponsors, because they've been with us for quite a bit now, and that is the good people over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is your daily fantasy, and what I always talk about is the nice thing about them is often with daily fantasy, you're going to lose. Now, that might seem weird to say on an advertisement here, but that's because you're going to face someone who has 40 million spreadsheets and is running 1,000 simulations. So when it's you versus other people, you're set up to fail. And that's why PrizePicks is better. It's not you versus dude with 1 million simulations. It's you versus the numbers. You can go and see what these guys are likely to do. You can look at the history. You can do a quick rundown yourself. And if someone else it's not about them having a better team. It's about you knowing how these players will perform. It's pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Check it out for yourself. It is a better way to do daily fantasy, in my opinion, because it is just you and the numbers. So download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's LOCKEDONMLB, all lowercase, all one word. You can also go to the website. And remember, that is LOCKEDONMLB, first deposit match up to $100. It's free money. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy at PrizePicks.
Thursday, you can catch the finale of the Red Sox and Guardians 4-game set in Boston. Just search Guardians on your SiriusXM app to listen to Tom Hamilton and Jim Rosenhaus with the call. Speaking of Boston, Jeff, looks like Ben Lively's next start will come against Boston. They play the Red Sox on, I believe, Tuesday of next week. We'll see how they decide to juggle the rotation, but that would be his next turn at this point. So that's very interesting that his next start would come against the same team. So I guess we'll see how
I don't think that's helpful
good
for
his
him.
Stuff plays.
I think he's a guy where you're better off like seeing someone once.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder about that. So we'll see. They do have an off day Monday, so maybe they'll juggle things. We'll see what they do. Also want to note, too, the bullpen got some rest. Nick Sandlin threw an inning. He looked really good. Got a couple of ground outs, got a couple of whiffs. That was good. And then Wes Parsons, he pitched really well. 7 whiffs, was thrown up to 96, 97. I will take that. I thought Wes Parsons was the guy they're going to DFA to add Pedro Avila, who we're going to talk about here in a second. But yeah. Parsons will probably go down for Avila when he comes to town.
Because he has no options. He is not Ben Lively.
Yes, that's right. He has some options, but just of the one variety, I guess. But yeah, Wes Parsons, good stuff from him.
No, and I've had these discussions off the air. We're of two minds when it comes to Parsons and Avila, because like we understand multiple teams like Parsons. There's a reason why they went out and added him. And Avila has had some decent data a year ago. He performed well at the big league level, and this guy has always missed bats. And that's arguably the most important thing you want a pen arm. And that's one of the biggest differences with all their struggles. Why their pitching is effective this year is because they're striking guys out. And a year ago, they weren't. The strikeout rates were down across the team. So that's been very helpful. are there dudes like Nick Enright you and I would love to see get that chance? Yes. Yeah, like Nick Enright looks like he should be on the 40 man right now with the way he continues to pitch. More so than, Alamon or some other guys. But at the same time, I can't fault a team for doing bottom of the roster churn, right? Like they saw a guy who they feel like will make them better. And who are any of us to question this team when it comes to pitcher evaluation? And plus, Avila came up, and he's 27, so I don't know how much you can help him, though it did feel like they helped tweak Lively some, and they've helped tweak some of these other guys. Avila came up in a San Diego system that was pretty much the worst in baseball at pitcher development when he came up as well. So take that for what it's worth.
I mean, they were able to tweak a guy like Trevor Stephan, who had control issues in the minors. He turned into a great setup guy. And De Los Santos was a scrap heap arm who, really never stuck at the
minor league
level.
Free agent.
Yeah, they turned that into something. They do this almost every year with somebody. And actually, Tyler Beatty's on this list, although he struggled the last couple times out. But yeah, Avila's 27. He came over from the Padres. If you weren't paying attention to on Wednesday, Cash, player be named later, or not probably named later.
No, it's just Cash.
Yeah, it's just Cash. So he's on the 40. Angel Martinez went to the 60-day IL. He has a fractured hamate and he needed surgery to remove the hook. So he is out 5 to 7 weeks. And he's
so
also
they had to do this.
They had to do that because his original injury occurred, which was a toe fracture not a toe fracture, but a bone bruise in his toe in spring training. He had not been optioned down yet. So he was on the major league injured list on a rehab assignment. And then this injury happened to him during his rehab assignment. So he has to stay on the major league injured list. So he is accruing service time at this point on the 60 IL. They didn't have a choice, but it opened up a spot for Avila, and then they activated Lively on Wednesday. They placed Morgan on the 15-day IL with shoulder soreness, and they optioned Curry down, obviously, for Parsons. So I assume Parsons will go for Avila, but I guess I have to wonder, like, is the Eli Morgan thing, is the shoulder soreness a thing, or is it hey, your shoulder is sore, so
I think it has to be a degree of a thing, because remember what just happened with the Mets? Like, no one wants to get in trouble for manipulation, and things like this are going to, like, this is going to draw attention. Right now, I guarantee you it's being investigated if he's hurt or not, because people are going to be concerned that, is someone else trying to, after someone just got slapped on the wrist for doing such things. And let's be honest, with Eli Morgan, while the last outing was solid, maybe there is a little bit of soreness there because he hasn't been his usual dominant self in the first half. He is a guy who's first half great, second half slide, and he's had some problems. So I think I'm going to bet it has to be legit, because if it's not legit,
it could cause yourself
it's a big risk.
Yeah, it's just maybe you're stretching it a little bit is all I can think of. I don't know. But Pedro Avila, Pedro Avila has missed some bats in the past. Really, the only issue with Avila is throwing strikes. He is, and as you've said before, Jeff, that is not usually this team's forte, is fixing guys who have bad control, but he's not had any problems missing bats. I mean, he throws 92, 95. He's up there in whiff rate so far this year at 97%. Keeps the ball on the ground. It's just, he's got to throw strikes. And I don't know, maybe he just becomes a guy who they throw out there like today at West Parsons when you're down by a couple of runs and he eats some innings. But now you've got Parsons, you've got Avila, you've got a couple guys in the bottom of the roster, like you said, that now they can come up and down. And hey, they avoided having to send down Cade Smith. I was very concerned that they were going to have to send Cade Smith down, which I didn't really like, but they avoided doing that, which is good because he's a key part of this bullpen. So now you've got some guys that can move up and down, even though, like you said, we both like to see Nick Enright up here. The only thing is with like Avila and Strzelecki and Parsons, like if you had the DFA then to create a 40-man spot, you're okay with that. I'd be less okay DFAing Nick Enright. So maybe that's
I agree. And they're building up. I mean, all these guys are looking good, and there is nothing that says, Barlow's a free agent at the end of the year. And hopefully they can get him on track and he can be a guy to flip. And then you have more depth. Or maybe there's a point where they can use some of the, relievers net you the most value at the deadline. So, and if they have a large stable of them, and maybe that's a situation where they can help them get a starter or help them get a bat. It's not unheard of in those situations.
Yeah, at some point, I think we'll have a conversation about whether or not the Guardians need to flip a reliever this year because of some of the pieces in their system they've built up. That might be a way for them to make.
It's a nice situation to be in.
It is. So I know some people were asking about why Curry was sent down. really Curry just sent down because Lively is out of options, as we've said. He has options, but he's out of major league options. So he's in the rotation. This is your 5 right now until Williams comes back. So Curry was needed in AAA to be depth, and you didn't want to send him to the bullpen. He needs to get stretched out. So that's just really what it is. No fault of his own. For Thursday's finale is Carlos Carrasco and against Boston. We'll see how that goes. Looks like Brennan Bernardino, the lefty, is going to be an opener, and then Cooper Criswell is going to be the bulk guy for the Red Sox. So be interesting to see how Vogt stacks his lineup, considering a lefty is the opener and a righty is coming in as a bulk guy. So
yeah, I know we mentioned
as well.
Yep, I know we mentioned some draft stuff. 2 quick notes. So Bazzana, darn you, Nevada! University of Nevada bonked him right on the hand, and then later in the game, he was seen in a soft cast with ice. Hopefully, it's nothing. But even if it is, let's say worst case, he broke his hand. If anything, we have talked about Cleveland. Cleveland might have been done scouting him in the Cape, honestly. It does hurt his ability to play this year, but you know who else was hurt and they drafted in many ways? Chase DeLauder. And it might drive down a guy's asking price. So there is that side of it. If his hand is broken, he can't compete the rest of the year and he might not be as expensive. I also want to point out, I don't know if I want to say friend of the show. You and I both have a long history. We're friendly with Joe Doyle. He put out a mock. He's had a different guy to Cleveland in every single mock. So I just want to point that out. But in that mock,
Mary Kurtzmas.
But importantly, he said it could be an underslot deal. And I see this popping up again. So I want to explain this to people who don't know. If you go underslot, that's not cheapness. Underslot is essentially trading down. If there are 4 dudes that you like and you're taking the cheapest guy, that means you're taking the guy you like, but you're using that money to sign someone big later. You move that money down. This team has not skimmed out on a draft outside of 2020, which was a weird year, ever. Basically since pre-Francisco Lindor. That they've always spent on the draft. They're not, I hate, and it's the dumbest thing when people are like, they're not going to spend, that's not this. There are places where they don't spend. Don't get me wrong. When it comes to the draft, they go right up to where they can go without losing a first round pick. So anyone you see out there pushing this like Dolan's cheap narrative about the draft, if they push about anything else, I don't care. But when it comes to the draft, that is just plain false. And that is a sign of either someone who doesn't know the team or someone with an axe to grind. AKA, Bernie. This team will always spend.
Shots fired.
He's terrible. What do I want to say? Like that dude has the biggest axe to grind with Cleveland. I mean, I think Jose Aguilar is his child with the way he talks about him. Jesus Aguilar. My bad. Now he's going to come after me. But they will spend. Like that's not a concern. Saving money is so you can spend more later on multiple.
Every team does this too, by the way.
Yeah.
Every team, the Pirates. They're cheap in a lot of places too.
The only team that didn't was Arizona, and that was that one year when Dave Stewart terribly mismanaged the team.
Oh,
and they had a deal fall apart. Oh. Yeah, and they ended up being $1 million under slot. It's the only team that never spent.
So really a lot of teams do this with the first pick, though. They take under slot so they can. I mean,
only Torkelson has gotten full slot.
That's it. And that's not going to happen. The Benson and Jones, they took Benson in the first round so they could have money to spend on Nolan Jones in the second.
Yeah.
It's just about maximizing your pool to get the most players you can that you like down the board. And we've talked this before. It's about leverage too. So don't think it's a bad thing. It's all teams do this. The Guardians did. So what did we learn today? We learned that apparently you can be called for a balk without balking because you don't declare if you're pitching out of the stretch or the windup. And we learned that some people don't know about the draft and they're willing to buy any narrative that fits their thoughts.
Angry view. Like I said, there are definitely ways you can say this team's cheap. The draft is just the one that is not.
We're not cheating you on time. We're not cheating you on podcasts. We'll be back in your feeds Friday to talk about the end of the Red Sox series, the beginning of the Athletics series, and we'll talk a little bit more about the draft and what to look for in college baseball over the weekend.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate all of you. We had a new everydayer who had a really hard name to pronounce. So,
Ziv on Twitter, Ziv Ohel always talks about how he listens every day, loves our show. He always tells me,
and he's on YouTube, and he's a really he's a fantastic dude. Always very kind. He has a great outlook on life. I want to cough, but thank you for joining us, and go Guardians, go.